والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. As we continue in Buloogh Al-Maraam, as we, for the most part, وَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدُ وَالْمِنَّةِ, وَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدُ وَالْمِنَّةِ, as we concluded the chapter in regards to the ahadith pertaining to the marriages that are invalid, we talked about with the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had talked about لا ينكح الزاني المجلود إلا مثله, that a fornicating man that has been lashed does not marry except one who is similar to him. As we finished that hadith, and we explained that you'll find that Ahl Ilm, that they said in this regards to this narration here particularly, that it's not permissible for one who's a zani to marry an afifa, a man who's a fornicator to marry a woman who's chaste. Meaning that his fornication has been established and that it's been affirmed. But it's been affirmed either by those shuhud or those witnesses, or him, as we know here in the hadith, meaning he was lashed. As we said, that the meaning of the hadith does not necessarily mean that he has to be someone who is lashed. That's not the meaning of the hadith. The meaning of the hadith is that if you'll find that Ahl Ilm, from them is the great Imam Shaykh Salih Fawzan, Hafidhullah wa Ra'ah, that he mentioned and said, the meaning of the hadith, majlood, man thabata zinahu, the one whose fornication has been established. Not necessarily that he's been what? Lashed. That's not the meaning. Rather, the meaning is, it's been affirmed, it has been made clear that he has what? He has fornicated, or he's committed adultery. So we said that these are from the al-ankihat al-batila, or from those ankiha, those different types of fornications that are invalid. Why is it invalid? We said because you'll find the origin of this matter returns back to the Book of Allah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nur, that He says, الزاني لا ينكح إلا زانية أو مشركة والزانية لا ينكحها إلا زان أو مشرك وحرم ذلك على المؤمنين. He says, الزاني, the one who's a fornicator, no one marries. He does not marry except a fornicating woman or a polytheist woman. And a fornicating woman does not marry, no one marries her except a fornicating man or a polytheist. And all of that has been unlawful upon the believers. If you return back to the tafsir of this ayat, the ayat is tremendous as far as in the meaning of it. A person would say fornicating man does not marry except a fornicating woman or a polytheist woman. If you look at that ayah, everyone knows, inshallah, we all know, inshallah, it's not permissible for a fornicating man who's a believer to marry a polytheist, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. To marry a polytheist, right or wrong, everyone. So based upon that ayah, Surah An-Nur said, what is the meaning? What is the meaning? The meaning is of those who have the i'tiqad, the belief. Notice it's going back to the belief. Who have the belief that the affair of zina, of fornication, there's no hurma to it, meaning that there's no type of sanctification in regards to avoiding it or staying away from it, meaning they believe what they're doing is halal. Like fornication, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. And we know that the person who has in their heart and they firmly believe that fornication or adultery or the likes of that, there's nothing wrong with that, then we know that will what? Remove you out the fold of Islam. Right or wrong, everyone? If a person believes that fornication, that nothing is wrong with it, there's no type of hurmah, there's no type of affair, or there's no type of, if you want to say, reprimandment or any type of, we're just saying, let's just say, keep it simple terms, there's nothing wrong with it. Then that person, like we said, if he has that belief and he knows the ayat in the book of Allah, that Allah clearly makes this matter unlawful to indulge in, then he comes behind or comes and follows it up and say, no, there's nothing wrong with that. Rather, fornication, what's wrong with that? Rather, that's the modern days, and that's how society is in these days and times. There's nothing wrong with that. We have to come up with the time. I don't believe what Allah says is appropriate or befitting for these days. If a person has that i'tiqad, then we know he has left the fold of Islam and he's become an unbeliever, which would come as a result of it, what, everyone? That this person who fornicates and at the same time he knows what he's doing, he believes that it's halal, then he is similar to that same person who's a mushrik or zaniya, or fornicating woman who believes likewise nothing what she is doing is unlawful. Rather she knows, or she believes, rather she believes what she's doing is lawful. And she thinks that's nothing wrong with what she's doing. All those people in that context, just to sum up and make it clear to everyone, what does that mean? That all three people that was mentioned in that context, all are what? Kuffar. Why? Why are they kuffar? Based upon the fact, why, everyone? Believe what they're doing is halal. That's the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it in this manner here in the context. In this manner which was mentioned here. And we also know that a person, of course, if you go back to the tafsir, also from the tafsir of it, Awal Imam Ahmed, and we'll also bring a narration that's also in the tafsir Ibn Kathir, that you'll find from also the meanings of it is that a man that falls into a fornication and he did not make tawbah, he did not make proper repentance from that particular act or that crime he committed as far as fornicating, or likewise a woman, if she fell into fornication or adultery or what have you. A person would say, is lesbianism and homosexuality counted? Well, if that's not the part of the affair, then what is? Also, that's counted along with it. That they fell into it and they did not take proper tawbah from it. And if that person now wants to marry, and they come along and they want to marry, and they did not make proper tawbah from their fornication, their adultery, or any type of abominable act that is done with the private part, then we talked about and said last class, the marriage is invalid. The marriage necessitates the invalidity of it, where it will not be what? Valid. So, we highly stress to our brothers and sisters, and I've been stressing this to our community for years after years after years, and our community still continues to do it. And I know brothers and sisters to this day, they still keep falling into the same old thing. They've been doing things they shouldn't be doing on the street from the time they was 30 years old, all the way up to where they were 40 years old, messing with their partner before they married them, messing with them, and they were messing around with each other or on the phone or doing things they shouldn't be doing. Then they fell into what? Divorce. Didn't work out. Then they'll get right back up and do it again. Fell into doing something with a man she shouldn't be doing, or he doing something with a woman he shouldn't have been doing. Then the marriage likewise falls or fails, it collapses. Then they'll do about 6, 7, 8 times. Then you'll say to them, why don't you try doing that halal just once? And even if it don't work out, at least you could say on the day of resurrection, alhamdulillah, when I meet Allah, Allah will bring forth my recompense, and I can say, alhamdulillah, I didn't fornicate. At least I had a marriage on my scale that it didn't work out, mashallah. But for now, you to come and have something as recorded by Allah and the angels on the day of resurrection, Why did you fornicate here? Why did you fornicate here? Why did you fornicate there? Why was you with the man here? Why was you with this woman here? Why was you doing that with that man here? Why was you doing that with that? What are you going to say to Allah? And then I said years ago when I was down Southwest Philadelphia, then we wonder why our relationships don't work out. Allah knows best. There's no tawfiq. Allah knows best. There wasn't no success in the relationship. Started off wrong. On the phone with your spouse, going out on dates, doing things y'all shouldn't have been doing, kissing and so-called doing things they should not be doing at all until after you're married. Then you wonder why the marriage went left. And they'll keep doing it over and over and over and over again. As if Allah was telling you how to what? It's like it's as if that what Allah has legislated, that's not good enough for us. It's not good enough for us. We got to try to cheat Allah's rules to attain happiness. How in the world do you think you're going to attain happiness by trying to transgress Allah's boundaries and go around and circumvent what He sent of how to conduct and properly marry and have relationships with a person and coexist with them in a household, and you're doing this type of what? You're doing and conducting yourself in this type of manner that displeases Allah. Then you want to have this happy marriage. As soon as you started off wrong with the man, and the man started off with a woman, you expecting, I'm supposed to deserve bliss now. How do you think you're going to deserve bliss? How do you think you even deserve bliss and happiness after you did something which you shouldn't have been doing? Then you have this entitlement issue, because that's a lot of our problems these days. I'm entitled. You entitled? You're entitled if you Allah knows best, you was in a Muslim country to have you behind lashed. That's your entitlement. Then after we did things wrong, we expect to have this love, blissful marriage now with this man that you so-called want him to love you so bad, but he doesn't. Why? How's your marriage start off? Question the actions of that. That's the reason why we've been stressing to our communities, the only way you attain bliss is how Allah commanded to do it. And if you did it, alhamdulillah, and then it didn't work out, and you did it the way Allah commanded, and the messenger commanded, do it again. Stay steadfast upon what is correct. Don't allow a sour or halal situation that went left now to allow shaitan to now put in your mind to you to resort to haram, to so-called attain happiness. Because you hear this for certain people. Well, I did it halal, so now you're going to do it haram? So what you think that's going to do? So that reason we say, brothers and sisters, stay away and do it what is correct. Stay away from what Allah. And I say this to our brothers too. And this is something I learned when I was younger, and it's a shame that I had to learn it because I was stubborn and hard-headed too at one time. Because I'm not sitting here acting like I was perfect either. I had to bump my head a couple of times to realize that what Allah and His message sent down is the truth, which it is. And this is how Allah teaches you a lesson. That you're going to keep bumping your head until you do it right. And then when I was younger, I had to realize that the only way that a woman is going to conform to doing what a man is showing respect is to do it how Allah and His messenger commanded. Other than that, if you deal with a woman sideways, that's how more than likely the relationship is going to go, where now when you're involved with her, she's going to have trust issues. And shaitan's going to be whispering in her head because she knows you were doing something with her when you married her or before you married her. So now the trust issues and the law knows best, the tawfiq has been snatched from the relationship, so now it's a bunch of problems, trust issues. Then we wonder why, like we said, a lot of these marriages don't work out because it started off wrong. And the only way that women are going to comply is how you deal with them, how Allah and His messenger tell you how to deal with them. That's the only way that you'll be able to get a woman to comply to doing in a manner or treating you in a manner of how you want her to. If you do it with a woman on the street or on the side, then you want to switch it and try to do it Islamically. So now you want to switch it and do it halal. You know, we was probably dating for 2, 3, 4, 5 months. We were fornicating, doing all these other things. Well, who knows? Allah knows best we shouldn't have been doing. We were doing all this. Now let's make it halal now. Tayyib, if you want to make it halal now, you're going to have to take proper steps. And I say this to people who always come to me in this situation. You're going to have to separate. That's part of the tawbah. The tawbah is separation. Separation where there's no contact. Unless it's the children, that's something different. And that just makes the whole situation even more worse. If you don't have children. But at any rate, if there isn't any children, then they'll have to separate. It's part of the tawbah. No contact, and the people who's in charge of the sister will have to take on her affair, whether it be the wali or the person in the family or at the masjid. They will have to be observed and looked after to make sure that they are properly following up their true tawbah. Follow up their true tawbah, and then afterwards, inshallah, if that's the case, then inshallah they could get married after they have been and professed and showed that they were what? Truthful in their tawbah. But before that, if they get married, while they had not made tawbah, even though they fell into fornication, as it says in the hadith, then the marriage is invalid. The marriage is invalid, and that's the meaning of the hadith, as we said. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? And I'm hard on everyone because, like we said, we need to remind ourselves of these matters. Because our people, we keep bumping our heads, thinking that we're missing something out here. We're not missing anything. Missing something out here, chasing after love. The only way you're going to attain true happiness is doing it how Allah and His Messenger had commanded to do it, no more, no less. And until we realize that matter and that fact, we're going to still keep bumping our heads and bumping our heads and bumping our heads until we realize or conclude or come to that conclusion. Other than that, these marriages are, Allah knows best, going to keep going the way they're going, especially if they've been dating and doing things they shouldn't have been doing before the marriage. The next hadith that we stopped at was the hadith of Aisha. And we talked about the hadith where it says, قالت طلق رجل امرأته ثلاث فتزوجها رجل ثم طلقها قبل أن يدخل بها فأراد زوجها الأول أن يتزوجها فسئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن ذلك فقال لا حتى يذوق الآخر من عسيلتها ما ذاق الأول. To the end of it. There's a man that he divorced his wife 3 times and another man married her. Then he divorced her before he consummated. So the first husband or the latter, or the prior husband or the ex-husband wanted her back, wanted to marry again. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had asked about that. He said no until the other that he tastes from her honey, meaning that he consummates with her what the first had did as far as tasting her honey, meaning he was intimate with her likewise. So the man who divorced his wife, in which we know where it's not halal for a woman to return after the 3rd divorce, he still cannot marry her until she marries another man, and that man who she marries has to be a nikah or marriage that is not what? That is just for an ulterior motive where she wants to return back to the first one. It has to be an actual marriage in which she's interested and she expects longevity in the marriage with that man, with that new man. That there was no type of ulterior motives or no personal goals or what have you that was discussed or intended either. So a person has to what? Check his niyat, because Allah Ta'ala will expose that on the day of resurrection, as we know. All of that which we concealed and what we tried to hide and have those ulterior evil intentions, all of it will be exposed. So for that reason, the woman that now goes inside the new marriage, she will have to what? She will have to marry a man with the intention or sole intention to remain and have longevity with that new husband. Now, if it didn't so-called work out with that new husband, based upon something that might have happened that they were not expecting, nor that they intended, or they were looking, or they was trying to say, yes, he's starting to go left, so now that can expedite my situation so I could go back to my first husband. No. You're trying to do your best to work out the relationship with this new person. You're not trying to get out this relationship so I can now go back to my what? Ex-husband. No. The intention is to remain with this man, and you're doing your best you can to work it out. But however, it didn't what? It went left. Now let's just say that was something that happened where he didn't consummate. The Prophet ﷺ made it clear here that what? Not until that man has done the same thing, of course, what was done with the prior man of her ex-husband. So it has to be basically a full marriage, a full-scale marriage. For the man who divorced his wife 3 times and she indulges in a new one, she cannot return back to him until what, everyone? Until she has that new marriage that she expects longevity and it's been consummated to the end of it. Is it clear? طيب. Flip the page. We're now going to indulge or start in a new chapter, which is called Bab al-Kafa'ah wal-Khiyar. Bab al-Kafa'ah wal-Khiyar. The chapter of adequacy and alternative or choice. The chapter of adequacy and alternative. Bab al-Kafa'ah wal-Khiyar. Insha'Allah, we will start. And know for sure that some people, due to their ignorance, would think that a lot of these conditions that we're going to bring in marriage, a lot of them are agreed upon, and a lot of them aren't. But we're going to break down the details for each one. First of all, what is the meaning of kafa'ah? Al-kafa'ah means adequacy, meaning to have some type of not equality, but we would say, now you could say equality in certain affairs, at certain levels, some type of equality in certain levels. Meaning in certain affairs in which we're going to clarify, either having adequacy or having equivalence in certain type of matters, which we'll discuss. It's all going to come. Notice that the great Imam Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, that he put in the book, on the chapter, adequacy, then he put after it, khiyar. Khiyar meaning alternative or choice, in which you'll find that he gives a key type of connection of this matter. Meaning, it's as if he's saying in an indirect way, that if this adequacy isn't there, then one has the choice to opt to want to, for example, annul the marriage. Or to what? Or to nullify it. If that type of equivalence isn't there in that certain matter, which we'll discuss. It's going to come, inshallah. Meaning that talab khayr al-amrayn, that one of the two can what? Ask for what is the best of affairs, either to continue the marriage, either to continue it, or they can what? Seek a fasakh. They can seek an annulment or dissolvement due to the reasons of which it's going to be discussed, inshallah. As far as the word adequacy, you'll find that Ahl Ilm mention adequacy in 5 affairs. In 5 affairs. For number 1 is adequacy in the affair of the religion, ad-deen. وهذا أهم شرط في المساواة بين الزوجين, to the end of it. هذا أهم شرط. So firstly, number 1 is adequacy in religion. And that is the most what? That is the most important condition of equivalence between the 2 spouses. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? Hello, sisters? Oh, gee. طيب. So in regards to the religion, meaning this type of equality or equivalence has to be present. For example, as we're going to discuss, a person will say, what do you mean equality as far as religion? I think it's clear. As far as, for example, a Muslim man marrying another Muslim woman. Like they both had to be Muslim, right? But we know there's certain details, as we'll discuss, where that's not absolute in all cases. As we know, it's permissible for a man to marry a what? A Muslim woman, or he can marry a woman from the people of the book. From the Kitab, from Ahl-Kitab, whether she be Christian or Jew, however, with the proper conditions. But me, like I said, I am on the opinion, as the evidence, if we go back to the evidence of the great Imam Al-Albani, that he clearly shows in this matter that this is not for the people of the book of these days, especially said in these days, that is not befitting for a Muslim man to marry a Muslim woman of these days. He said, but however, if we were in a certain time, whereas a man was in a particular, he was in a particular circumstance, or he was allowed to take his Christian woman that he married and be amongst the Muslims. Because he was given athar of the salaf of those who married a Christian woman, meaning that even though he married her from some of the Sahaba, or what happened with the Sahaba, that they married a Christian woman, but she was under the rulership of what they were living in, of the Muslims. So the influence that was done on the children was still Islamic, and it wasn't Christian. Sheikh Al-Albani was bringing numerous evidences to clarify, showing that to marry a woman of the book of these days is not befitting. But however, some of those few Sahaba that married a woman from the book, you'll find that he said that they were still in the land of the Muslims where Islam was prevalent and it was dominant. So the influence upon the children and even upon the woman, even though she was Christian, was still Islam. So the children wouldn't be influenced. Because still when they go out and when they perform certain particular practices, the influence of Islam and the proper aqeedah and the proper belief will be implemented, so it would not be a reason to cause the child to deviate or for his belief to be polluted. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? So what I'm saying is, in this regard, did we discuss this before? I don't know if I discussed it. Maybe it was probably... Anyway, so Imam Al-Albani, that he mentioned in this regard, that he said about the people of the book. And that we'll discuss in a couple of minutes, inshallah. But I'm under that position strongly. It is not befitting for a man to marry the women of the book of these days. Of these days, no. And so to see some of the brothers who I've seen and I couldn't believe it, I still don't know how they married her. I'm still trying to scratch my head of how they even married. Would they do it in the masjid? Or they did it in the church? Or how they even married each other? And then on top of that, the type of Christian women that are now, that these brothers are marrying, are tight skirt, weave wearing, eyebrow plucked to the end of it. That they probably been dating, who knows what they've been doing besides that, also before the marriage. Music listening to, jamming, discoing, clubbing, drinking, anything goes, you name it. That's a proper Christian lady? So that reason we say, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, you'll find that it says al-musawa as far as equality. That has particular details in which we'll discuss. But the adequacy of the origin of it is that it's adequacy what? Between a Muslim man and a Muslim woman. That adequacy has to be there. So there has to be a Muslim woman has to marry a Muslim man, and a Muslim man has to be married to a Muslim woman, except for those certain conditions or other circumstances that we'll get into, inshaAllah. But the origin is that a man should find a Muslim woman to marry. That's the origin. Even though it's permissible to marry a woman of the book or person of the book, a Muslim woman, a Muslim man marry a Christian woman or a Christian woman or a Yahudiya or a Jewish woman, even though that's the case, you'll find that Ahl Ilm still say that a man should still marry a Muslim woman, regardless. So that's adequacy as far as in religion. Then you have adequacy as far as in liberation, as we'll talk about, inshallah. In liberation. What's the meaning of liberation? Meaning he cannot be, or she cannot be a concubine, he cannot be a slave. Well, we're going to get the details of that also. Don't worry. That's the second type of adequacy. Adequacy as far as in one's liberality or one being free or what have you. We'll discuss that. No, it's going to come, inshallah. طيب. The third type of adequacy is al-musawa bayn az-zawjayn fi an-nasab. Meaning having that equivalence or adequacy between the two spouses in lineage. In lineage. All these details, like we said, sisters, don't draw up the conclusion that this is what's agreed upon. It isn't. Some are agreed upon, or actually there's only one that has an ijma'. But anyway, there's one that has a consensus, and the rest have some details, and some of them are not even considered at all. but some of Ahl Ilm mention it in regards to what we're going to mention some details, meaning that the woman or the man has or the woman has the choice. You'll find that the beauty of this chapter, while we're putting it in, or while you'll find that Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar put it in the book, is to show the religion does not have any compulsory or forced or arrangements where a woman has to what? Stay in a particular marriage if certain circumstances take place. For example, number one, of course, let's just say now a man, he left the fold of Islam. So now the adequacy of Islam is gone, right? So for that reason, now the marriage is what? It's over. Is it clear? Or for example of hurriya or liberality or one being free. That has some details in it because that's not all case. That's not in all cases. There's a certain case in which we'll discuss inshallah. Or in an aspect of nasab or in an aspect of one's lineage. Meaning, does one have to have adequacy or equivalence in one's lineage? In one's lineage. What do you mean lineage? As we know, in regards, especially during the times of old, it's sad that, it's not these days, but during the times of old, lineages and family backgrounds meant a lot to people. And certain people came from prominent backgrounds. But they were leaders and they were people who were upright people or known for righteousness and piety. Or they were known for being strong, stern men in their families or what have you. It's still prevalent, but here, especially here in America, of course, they're still present that families are big and known for certain things. But at any rate, adequacy as far as in the aspect of nasab, and the aspect of lineage is also considered what they call in this chapter, in which also has some details that's going to come. Then you have what they call equivalence or adequacy in the aspect what they call al-hirfa. Al-hirfa. Al-hirfa meaning like a profession. Like a profession. Like a job. Or in certain type of occupations that a person will have. Does a person have to have, meaning you'll find that some of the salaf, which we'll talk about inshallah, that if a person has a lowly type of occupation that he does in order to acquire his money, can a woman marry a man that has a certain type of occupation or a certain type of work that's considered lowly or what have you? All that's going to come inshallah. Then you have the fifth type of adequacy, which is called al-musawa bayn al-zawjayn fil yasar. Fil yasar. Meaning adequacy as far as in enrichment or as far as in wealth. As far as in wealth. Meaning a woman that's, let's just say for a woman that's well off or rich, that she marries a man that's poor, for example, that's impoverished. And he is not able to spend on her. Let's just say, for example. That's also what they call a type of adequacy or equivalence in marriage, which we'll mention inshallah. All that's going to come. Don't worry. Like we said, some of these conditions not even considered. Some of them are, and that one has an ijma'. One has a consensus, which is the first. Adequacy as far as religion. Except in certain details or certain circumstances of the people of the book. Because we know, like we said, Muslim man can marry a woman of the book. Of course, if we were in a certain time, a certain place, then a man can marry a woman of the book with certain conditions, but not the opposite. A Muslim woman cannot marry a Christian man, nor can he marry a Jewish man. طيب. So that is the reason why he put it in the chapter, which is called Bab al-Kafa'a. That's what I'm starting with. Oh, wow. طيب. As far as the first one, we'll start with this one and we'll continue next week. The first one is adequacy in the religion. Having adequacy in the religion. As we know, this is the most important condition as far as having the equivalence amongst the two spouses. That is the most important. As we know, that is the origin. A Muslim man should marry a Muslim woman, and you even find during the time of the Salaf that was what preferred, that a Muslim man marry a Muslim woman. And that he should not marry a disbelieving woman, of course. That was the origin. But at the same time, if a person was in that particular circumstance where a woman was chaste and she was from the woman of the book, then of course we know that's the origin, is that Allah did make it halal. So we cannot deny that. That's part of the religion. If it's in those certain circumstances. You calling you there? I think he's calling. I'm not sure. طيب. You'll find in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah Ta'ala did mention in his book, which is in his tremendous, noble book, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, وَحِلَّ لَكُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَطَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ. What's time? How many minutes? 15? Oh, it comes in quarter after? Oh. As Allah Ta'ala says in his book, الْيَوْمُ أُحِلَّ لَكُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَطَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ وَطَعَامُهُمْ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ وطعامكم حل لهم والمحسنات من المؤمنات والمحسنات من الذين أوتوا الكتاب من قبلكم إذا آتيتموهن أجورهن محسنين غير مسافحين ولا متخذي أخدان ومن يكفر بالإيمان فقد حبط عمله وهو في الآخرة من الخاسرين. Allah Ta'ala says in his book, he said, today it has been made lawful for you all those different types of halal, wholesome, lawful food. And the food of those who've been given the book is halal for you. And your food is halal for them. It's lawful for them. And those women who are chaste from the believers, and the women who are chaste or chaste from the women who are given the book. So notice Allah Ta'ala said that it's permissible for a Muslim man to marry a Muslim woman, non-Muslim woman from the book, women of the book, with those conditions. The condition is ihsan. Ihsan. Meaning, not only does she believe, or not only is she practicing, ihsan, meaning she's a woman that's afifa, chaste, but she believes that also likewise that fornication is haram, and that being a chaste woman and avoiding that is what is correct. How would you know from a majority of the Christian women who are on these streets believe that fornication is wrong? They don't have that belief. They think there's nothing wrong with it. And for that reason, you'll find that the majority of the salaf that they used to what? The test that the mu'min marry a woman for the book, even though he could. That he should marry a Muslim woman, in contrast to that affair of indulging in that. Because of the influence upon, for example, number one, the religion of the man. For a Christian woman now that a man marries of these days, of what will be a danger for him upon his religion, and the influence she will have upon him, especially these days and times where a lot of men, especially we live in days where men are very weak and they're very emotional too. And as a result of it, we know that even women can even influence a man for the influence that she will have upon him. So that's a danger in itself, of course. As we know, the hadith, that's not a hadith, it's an athar upon a salaf. There's an athar about a woman who's a Christian lady. And she was very beautiful, but she was Christian. He was Muslim, a man who was Muslim. And he's seen her. And she was very beautiful. So, when he went and asked her, he wanted to basically marry her. She says, I'll marry you on a condition that you become Christian. I'll marry you on the condition that you become Christian. So he said, no. She said, the only way I will marry you is you become Christian. So what did he do? He became Christian. Listen to not only this particular author, listen to this is what upholding your beliefs will happen. Now, if you sell out and compromise it, let's look to the other thing that happened. So now realize that this man became a what? Apostate. He apostated, right? طيب, listen to what this non-Muslim woman, this is what this kafir woman said to him. This is what she said to him. She said, إِنَّكَ بِعْتَ دِينَكَ بِشَيْءٍ رَخِيصٍ. She said, verily you sold your religion for something cheap. فَسَتَبِيعُنِي بِأَرْخَصٍ. Now listen to what she says. You would sell me for something even more cheaper. I have no need for you. Leave me alone. So not only did he lose out on her, but he lost out on his religion. So what he intended totally in the end didn't even take place. It didn't even happen. So that is one of the reasons why it's been highly disliked, of course, that a man marry, of course, a Muslim man but marry a Christian woman. And also likewise, due to what? Of the danger that would take place of a lot of Muslim women that will be left off unmarried. And they will remain women who are not married without anyone to aid them or for anyone to take care of them. And like we said, will be left off in the danger for corruption of these Muslim women have to resort now to haram means in order to what? So-called have a man to take care of them or what have you. Or just to have some type of what? Some type of companionship. A certain people seek some type of companionship. But however, these are the dangers of why it is disliked that a Muslim man marry a Christian lady or a Jewish lady or what have you, due to the fact of these type of dangers. But like I said, I'm on the position that a Muslim man is not befitting to marry a woman of the book of these days. If the person wants my evidence, I'll bring it to him. And there's a lot of different reasons that Sheikh Al-Albani brought details that agrees with Kitab and Sunnah. That in actuality, we're not following the statement of Imam Al-Albani. We found Kitab and Sunnah. And his statement aids that. So that's the reason why that a person should not marry a woman of the book of these days. So that's the only exception. But however, like we said, the Muslim woman is not supposed to marry the what? The Muslim woman cannot marry a non-Muslim man. We know that is what? Haram. You'll find Ahl-Ilm mention that the reason that the origin is that men have a tremendous impact and influence upon a woman. That she could be easily influenced in most cases. Not all cases, but in most cases. That a woman could be influenced by her man. And he will have an effect to the point where she will leave off her religion. Or she will find a great hardship in practicing her religion if she was to marry a non-Muslim man. Because we know that a man is what? Has that type of dominance, especially if he's a true man. And he knows how to cater to a woman's so-called emotional needs and get inside of her head, then he can really impact and influence her. So that's the reason why it's what? It's prohibited for a Muslim woman to marry a non-Muslim man in this regard. Why? Because of the dangers of her religion being in a state or being jeopardized. So those are the details in regards to the first condition. And that is the ijma'. This is a consensus. There's no difference of opinion in this at all. So it's not so the adequacy as far as religion, that's the origin. That a Muslim man should marry a Muslim woman, and a Muslim woman, of course we know, has to marry a Muslim man. So that adequacy in religion has to be there. And also due to the ayah that we mentioned in Surah An-Nur a couple of minutes ago, which is ayah number 2, where we said that Allah Ta'ala says that a fornicating man does not marry a fornicating woman or a polytheist woman. And inshallah, next class, I'm going to try to bring some of the aqwal or the statements of Ahl Ilm of what they mentioned about this ayah, because this ayah is tremendous. It has tremendous benefits in it, showing the importance of having the belief that fornication is wrong, no matter what time or place you're in, and how it's important to keep that belief. And you can see how this ayah was mentioned because, especially in these days and times, where you see that a lot of people in these days believe there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Rather, it's part of society now. And they don't realize that this is the reason why it's bringing down society, and you see the statement, or we see the state that it's in, because of affairs that oppose what Allah has sent down. So that's the first statement or the first condition, which is called al-musawa fi din, or what they call al-kafa'a fi din, or al-kafa'a ad-diniya, what they call religious adequacy, if you want to say, for lack of a better word, religious adequacy or equivalence in religion. Equivalence in religion. So that's the first one, and we'll stop here, inshallah. We'll continue next week with the other ones, because a lot of them have some details that we don't have time to elaborate and explain all of them. Now, any questions about the lesson? Tafadal. I can't hear. Now, if it's from, as far as the representation, number one, it starts off, the origin of it is in the family. Meaning, if the family is Muslim. And not only are they Muslim, but they're also praying Muslims, religious praying Muslims. Religious praying Muslims are, and not only that, because a lot of sisters, I'm talking about the origin, how it's supposed to be, arrangement. The arrangement is supposed to start with your family, your father, your brother, your uncle, to the end of it. So your father, or the brother, they have to be practicing, praying Muslims. And the men who take on the walaya of the woman is abna al-ab, from the asaba. A lot of women don't know that that's the origin. That the asaba, that the men from the men that's supposed to handle the affairs of the women are the men from the father's side, not the woman, not the mother's side. From the father's side, the asaba. So that's the origin. That's the origin. طيب, let's just say now that they're not Muslim, or they're not praying, or what have you. No one in their family, brothers, father, uncle, what have you. No one is Muslim. No one is Muslim. Nobody is praying. They're out in the street, or whatever they're doing, whatever they're doing. So now she would have to move on to the next step. She had to move on to the next step. What's the next step? It's to go to the masjid or go to the Marakiz al-Islamiyya. Because I discussed this matter with a lot of Ahl Ilm when I was in the University of Medina. SubhanAllah, because some of them are at the heads of fitna these days, SubhanAllah, they ain't very afraid. But for back then, when I discussed it with them and it was asked the question, and even Sheikh Salih Fawzan even mentioned and answered the same question. He said if a woman does not have any Muslim men in her family, especially from the father's side, that can take on and handle her affairs, then she would go to the Marakiz al-Islamiyya. She would go to either to the masajid, or she would go to one of those Islamic centers. Of course, that's correct, upon the correct methodology, of course, with the proper, that's calling to the proper belief. She would go to them and ask for her affairs to be handled by them. So that's the second choice, or the second option. If she doesn't now, there's no masajid that can handle her affairs after that, then she will return her affairs to someone who is close, probably in their family, of what she would recommend of a man who's Muslim that can handle her affair properly. So the women should not resort just to finding a quick wali to marry her off on the corner of the street at the gas station somewhere. No. Rather, she be what? She should do it in this order, in this arrangement. Look in her family. Family's not there, they're not Muslim. Then go to the second option, take it to the masjid or to the Marakiz Islamiyya. Third option, then of course, then find someone who's reliable, who can handle her affairs from the Muslim men who are practicing out there, that she finds reliable in his religion and his trustworthiness and his uprightness. Is it clear? But it is not permissible for any Muslim woman to handle her affairs as a non-Muslim man. It's not permissible. Even if it's the father and he's not Muslim. He cannot marry her off because of the shart al-wilaya al-Islam. Because for the condition of taking on the affairs of the woman is what? He has to be Muslim. It's the last question. We have to pray. We'll continue next week, inshallah. And I'll be here so I can hear some of the sisters some of the things they have to tell me. طيب. We'll do that next Sunday when I get here on time. But the last question is, if two people had a pre-marital relationship that resulted in the woman's pregnancy, they separate, get married while she is pregnant, is the marriage valid? طيب. As far as the marriage of the woman that's pregnant, even if it's by the man who she was fornicated with, woman who's fornicated, she got pregnant by a certain man. So now they separated. They want to make Tawbah because they want to get married. So they separated. طيب. The strongest opinion in this regard is that she should wait until she has the baby, then get married. She should wait, then get married. That she should wait and then get married. They should wait, make sure they made Tawbah, have the child, then she gets married. After they made proper Tawbah. Is the marriage valid? The marriage has to be looked at. Did they make proper Tawbah? Did they make proper Tawbah? Then if they made proper Tawbah upon that, is to look whether or not they were what? Did they get married at the time where she was what? Pregnant, and were they ignorant? If they was ignorant, that's something different. So that has to be looked at too. If the man claims he did not know he couldn't marry her while she was pregnant, and he thought and claimed he made Tawbah, which included their separation, does his ignorance affect the... we just discussed this, alhamdulillah. I already answered two birds and answered two things about one. Same answer, alhamdulillah. Same thing we just mentioned. If he was ignorant and she was ignorant,